Hello.
Hi, is this Brian?
Who is this?
This is Leroy Ragnot. I'm trying to get a hold of a Brian Russell. I think we have a common acquaintance and maybe some similar experience with a lady named Marielle Soto. Does that name sound familiar?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Say that again.
Yeah, I said I think we have a person in common and maybe possibly a similar experience with somebody called Marielle Soto. Does that name sound familiar?
Who are you?
Well, I made the mistake of marrying this woman, and I'm going through actually a strange situation where she's managed to take about $500,000 from me in about a year and a half period of time. And I'm going through a divorce, but she's definitely focused on money and finances, and it's a winding, twisted story. She mentioned your name, and she mentioned that you might have even lived in the same building as me when I moved to Hingham, Massachusetts, Avalon Residences. I had an apartment on the 5th floor, 514 or 508, maybe 508. And she mentioned that you guys had a relationship and it ended, in some way, something to do with Daniel. She never really mentioned details. She's pretty good at obscuring whatever she's done in the past. But I met her, she introduced herself to me on eHarmony on May 8th of 2020. I was semi-retired, an engineer that had worked at Lilly, and I'd had a significant amount of savings and I didn't have any debt. And she was very assertive about wanting to get married, and she mentioned it like actually in our first conversation, and she quickly wanted to video chat with me, and she wanted me to come meet her. And I found out a series of things, including like migraines and vertigo, and she needed to be driven everywhere. Danny couldn't drive, and then I was in this strange situation where I thought I was courting somebody, but really I was like paying their grocery bills and transporting them back and forth to their parents or wherever they wanted to go. And she was part of a church, a Natick Church of Christ. I met most of the leaders there, Greg Burton, Mike, I can't remember his last name. But anyway, I met most people there, but it was during the pandemic, and so I was courting this lady during the pandemic. I spent, about $200,000 to $300,000 in a very short amount of time between renting an apartment, paying for a lot of bills, going on a pretty expensive honeymoon, and a variety of other things. And then I married her December of 2020. We bought a house. I bought a house in Florida, moved there. We got divorced in June of 2021. And then she recontacted me soon after, and we remarried in September of 2021. And then I bought another home in Rhode Island. She moved into that home, and she managed to take sole possession of the home. I bought a vehicle. She managed to take sole possession of the vehicle, and now we're going for a second divorce. And so I suspect that I'm not the only person she's done something like this to. Probably this is the largest scale, but I suspect she's done this on a smaller scale to a variety of people, quite honestly, around the world, not just in the United States, as I'm looking into things. So I don't know if any of that sounds familiar to you, but you're the name that popped up as I was looking for the Brian that she mentioned.
Yeah, I'm the Brian, and I ended up meeting her as well online, and same kind of story. I didn't marry her or anything like that. I did date her, and I just realized that she was just trying to sponge off of me. She was just wanting money. She wanted me to get her an apartment and pay for it all. And then she's just getting very expensive gifts. And I think the most expensive thing I ever bought her was a Canadian Goose coat that she had. And
how much was that, by the way?
It was right about $1,500.
Did she pick it out?
So she did.
Yeah. So
she always
Yeah.
Everything she picked out was always the most expensive.
Yes. So she did the same thing to me. She wanted a $34,000 engagement ring. I got her a $27,000 engagement ring, and she really wasn't happy. $3,000 wedding bands, $300,000 home. I bought a $65,000 car, and she managed to put her name on it. I noticed Daniel had a really expensive bike, and I wondered how would they afforded a bicycle like that. Did you buy that bicycle for them?
Was it a blue truck?
I didn't even know the name, but I knew it was like $1,000, $1,500 bicycle, and with the way they were living, they couldn't afford mattresses. I didn't understand.
Yeah, that was my bike I gave Daniel.
Yeah, so Daniel was a strange kid. I felt for him because his dad was not involved, as far as I could tell. I got mixed stories about his dad, actually. What was your take on that?
Well, what I was always told was he was involved in a crime in DR where they killed someone, and he was doing time in prison. But then Marielle met him by going to the prison where he was at.
See, I've never heard this story.
By doing Christian work.
Wow.
And they say no, they were having conjugal visits.
Whoa. This is crazy. She's never put those two things together for me. She's mentioned them separately. She mentioned this Christian idea, and I thought it was weird. Why would a girl go to a prison with men by herself? I've never heard of that as a ministry.
Well, from what I heard, she went in groups in the beginning,
right?
And then she met this man, and then she would start going back. And it was something odd. I mean, something that I felt odd was that he was in jail for killing someone, but yet he'd be allowed to have time away from the prison to go home and visit and stuff. But then he'd have to go back after a while.
Yeah, basically nothing she ever says, when you try to add it up, makes sense. And she says very little, but the little that she says, she said way more to you than she said to me, just to be honest, which is great. Yeah, go ahead.
I used to drill her, and because I'd catch her in lies.
Okay.
And then she'd give me that passive-aggressive silent treatment
right.
for days.
Yes. I know exactly.
You experienced some silent treatments?
Yeah. I mean, for weeks, months. I mean, super passive-aggressive, violent temper, to be honest. Would not respect my physical space when she was angry. And she'd put her hands on me, and that doesn't work for me. So I would tell her to back away, or I would move away, but she would insert herself and wave her finger around in my face, and she'd put her, pinch me. I think she's kneed me once. She's a strong girl. There's no doubt. But if she wanted to do damage to me, she would do it.
I knew something was wrong with her, and I just had to get away from her. I mean, it was so apparently that something was wrong with her, psychologically wrong with her. I told her, you stay away from me. Don't ever see me ever again. I just had to cut her off cold turkey. She would show up, and it's odd because you lived in the residences in Hingham.
Yeah, so I probably passed you in the hallway. So this is bizarre. So, I mean, all of this is bizarre. But I actually just wanted to come see her and take her to dinner. I've got family in New York, and I've got family in upstate New York. And I thought, well, I'll just get an Airbnb. I'll, meet her. And she wouldn't let me go see my family in upstate New York or New York. And then when the pandemic happened, my family was getting into the mode of isolating. And so I was going to sign a 3-month lease and go back and forth to Indianapolis, where I'm from, at not the Avalon Residences, but the apartment complex that's right attached to it, like the Shipyard, I think it's called. And so I wanted to rent an apartment there. It was cheaper, and I didn't actually like the place. It was on the ground floor. There was a lot of noise. I had a really nice condo in Indianapolis, which I sold for this relationship. But anyway, she insisted that she wanted me in the same building. And I'm a believer in Christ. I have a feeling you're also a believer in Christ, which is kind of what she does now to suck people in, is she kind of pretends to be a Christian, basically. And I have been married before, and I knew it was important for me to keep the marital bed non-existent, basically, before marriage. And so I thought being in separate buildings would be helpful. But she insisted that she wanted me in the same building. She always had a story. She always had a reason. She always was projecting how much better our relationship was going to be if I did what she told me to do. And so the idea was like, I'm going to be 2 floors.
Her.
Go ahead.
That is her.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, we're gonna get a couch, and I'll be able to come up and hang out, and there won't be any commute, and we'll be able to spend that much more time together. Well, I got the apartment, like I said, I think at 508, and I think that you ended up on the 5th floor. And she told me some months after, like, oh yeah, the guy that I used to have a relationship with, you may run into him. And she was kind of sheepish about it, didn't give any details. And I kind of was like, well, how's that work? What would happen if you guys run into each other? I mean, she said, oh, we'd be polite, like, a high and by wave type of thing. I was like, okay, I guess. And I fell for her. Okay, well, I'm glad you're saying that, because she gave me the, every line in the book. And the odd thing is, I got that apartment, and she never came to see me in the apartment. And then there was a strange thing with Daniel, where for the first few weeks, I wasn't allowed to meet Daniel, and it was like Daniel was shy or something. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Daniel's shy at all. I think Daniel's probably got a slice from his father, and he's got a big slice from his mom, too. And quite honestly, when you say his father killed somebody, the way that Daniel acts, it makes sense. Daniel has a very bad temper. Did you see his temper at all?
Oh, he has got a major temper.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
They're both. If my phone cuts in and out, it's just my apartment.
Yeah, I understand.
So, Daniel's got a very violent temper. He can be physical. He can be physical with his mother. He's definitely verbally loud and very disrespectful.
Yeah, I experienced all of that and worse. I had to teach him how to drive, and that was a miserable experience. Very manipulative too. I don't know if you got that, but if he wanted something, he'd be super extra nice, like sweet, like sugar and cookies. Yep. But once he didn't want anything, he didn't even want to talk to you.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah,
exactly.
He hasn't grown out of it. He's grown into it. Yeah.
Mariel is such a nightmare in my life.
Yeah.
When I heard the word Mariel.
Yeah.
Coming out of your mouth, I about hung up the phone with you.
Sorry. I can hardly hear you. I know you. Yeah, I can hardly hear you, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mariel is just, my mother does not to ask me anything else about her anymore, because she brings me so much anxiety.
Now, so I'm sorry to hear that. And I completely understand what you're saying. She said, I just want to clarify things with you, because I know that I'm looking at a bunch of lies, and every time I look into her and find out more, it's like, and we could probably talk for like 10 days and not cover all the craziness with this person. Unfortunately, I'm serious. So she said that there was something that happened between you and Daniel, which was the cause of the end of the relationship. And I'm just going to say this. Daniel and her had a very awkward relationship. Daniel, at the age of 15, thought it was a good idea to run around naked in front of his mom. Now, I've never seen Daniel naked, but he would check to see if I was in their apartment in the Avalon Residences, like so he could walk around the hallway comfortably or whatever, because he didn't mind his mom seeing him, but he didn't want me to see him. And I had an issue with this idea that like her 15-year-old son doesn't have any issue, and she didn't have enough of an issue about it, which was strange. And so they're both into body image, and so and body shaming, and so she would check out her son if he was gaining weight and make comments to him or restrict his food or do awkward things to encourage him to like get into shape or whatever. She did the same thing to me. Maybe you're in better shape than me or whatever, but it didn't feel good. And then they would sleep together, and they had this idea of like part of socializing, watching TV or whatever, or even sharing the bed at night, depending on what she was thinking, and as he was getting older and older, he would want to either not have anything to do with his mom, or he wanted to be able to share her bed. And it was really strange. And when I brought it up to her on multiple occasions, like she really wouldn't provide an explanation. So I don't know if that dynamic was something that you observed or, whatever, I don't know.
Well, of course he was younger, but he did want to sleep in the same bed with her, and that was a thing that they did practice. But as far as walking around naked in the house, no, nothing like that.
So,
but
go ahead.
Yeah, she didn't mind to dress inappropriate in front of Daniel, and it was just kind of strange.
So I can tell. So she would wear a G-string in front of Daniel and not think anything of it, right?
Exactly.
Yes, thank you for. Yeah, sorry to be that blunt, but that's exactly what I observed many times. She'd leave the door as she was using the bathroom open enough where if Daniel wasn't being careful, he'd just simply see her straight through the door, while she's on the bathroom, and she didn't think anything of it.
Yep.
So, gosh, you have no idea what I'm sorry to have to bring, but like this is a relief because I've been living in this crazy world trying to figure out like, is somehow this like me, because she would basically gaslight me and try to brainwash me into thinking like the things that are bothering me aren't that big a deal. It's me. And
yes. That is her. Listen to your instinct. She's the screwed up one.
Well, I mean, I married her twice, so my instincts are obviously bad. I mean, I'll just be honest. Like, I fell in love with this woman for really unhealthy reasons. She reminded me of somebody else, my first girlfriend, just her facial features. And somehow or another that mattered to me. And I didn't think about it at the time, but after the fact, and there was just a lot of manipulation. Like, she says all the right things. Anything a husband would want, she says, at least to me. She said all the things about the type of wife she was going to be, how important marriage was. I'm pretty confident that she has tried to get in touch with you a couple times during my relationship with her. At least look you up or find out what you're doing. But I mentioned this thing about, did something happen with Daniel that created, an argument between you that was before the end of your relationship, or did she make that up too?
That's all fabricated from her. What ended Marielle was her behavior. I do not tolerate passive-aggressive treatment, the silent treatment, and I had enough of it. I'm like, I am not going to live, I am not going to be part of you if you're going to just ignore me and treat me like I'm nobody and just pass me by like I'm just your person who's writing a check to have a place to stay.
Yeah. So,
and
how did that?
If she was, when her money, when I finally said, I'm done, I'm over, and I told her, and I was packing up my stuff to leave, she says, "You're still going to pay for my rent, right?"
Wow.
I said, absolutely not. That's your problem.
Wow. That's crazy. And you know what's crazy about that? It makes sense for the type of person she is. So she has just drained me, like I said, of hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's still going after more and more. We went on a trip to Alaska for a second honeymoon. We spent a week in Seattle. Did you guys do any trips? She was big on talking about trips. Everything she could do to get on a plane or a car to go somewhere was like first on her list.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of already onto her game, so I did not give in to that.
Wow.
And I'm like, I told her, I said, we stayed in like some Airbnbs local around here in the New England area. And, but other than that, I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not comfortable.
So did you guys share a 3-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment?
3-bedroom.
Okay. It wasn't clear from what she said. Yeah. So you met through eHarmony?
I think it was I can't remember, to be honest with you.
That's fine.
It might have been Match or eHarmony, but it was one of those websites.
Do you have any like saved conversations or profiles or anything that kind of like shows that presents herself as one person and is completely different than that?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't have any of that stuff left.
Okay, that's fine.
I know we talked on WhatsApp a lot.
Right.
I'm not even logged in, so I don't know if I logged back in if that profile would even pop back up or not.
Do you happen to have that WhatsApp conversation saved by chance?
I know I can. I have to check and find out.
That's fine, because she has a tendency to like go nuts with her fingers and say things with her fingers. You know, as far as typing messages to you, where she's basically expressing her temper or anger. Did you meet her parents?
Do what?
Did you meet her parents?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
They seem really nice.
Well, the mom seems really nice, but she seems like she's desperate for her daughter to get married. And, you know, I built a relationship with her, but, of course, she only speaks Spanish. The father's kind of like this, you know, vacant person that smiles and nods and whatever, but, like, he'll eat a whole meal by himself without saying a word. And, of course, Daniel does the same thing. Like, he'll go into his room, eat a meal by himself, not say a word to anybody. And I feel like he learned it from his grandpa. But, you know, like both of them have this ridiculously antisocial thing, you know, if they feel like it. You know, when they're speaking in Spanish, they love it. But when they don't have that option, they just kind of like go into their own little world.
Yeah, that's definitely the case.
Do you remember Go ahead.
It sounds like we've had the very same experience, but you've had a really much
I have.
worse end of the deal.
Well, the good news is that God has brought a ridiculous number of people. You know, there's people that I never met before all this that are helping me get through it. And like, you know, I hope to talk to you again someday. But when I explain to you like the ridiculousness of how low, and I've been in a pit for 1.5 years. This last divorce is taking both marriages 4 months long. You know, now I'm dealing with a 1.5 year divorce. And it might be in 6 more months, and she's just fighting tooth and nail for everything that she can get her hands on. It's kind of ridiculous. And she finally got herself a job. I suspect that when you met her, she wasn't working. But do you remember approximately what date you met her and what date she might have come to the country?
I don't know what date she came to the country, but I would have met her. I would say probably December 2018.
Wow.
And then probably because I was actually moving up here for a job, so that was made things more convenient. But I think it was over. I'm terrible with years. I had a head concussion, so I think I don't want to tell you wrong, but
exact doesn't matter. I'm just trying to.
All right, probably by the end of 2019.
Okay, so about a year, and then did you guys talk about marriage?
Oh yeah, she talked. I was not really interested in it, but I just let her pretty much chat about it. She wanted to pick out rings. She was picking out rings online and in magazines, and I'm like, oh wow, look at that! There she goes again. There's another $15,000-$20,000 engagement ring right there.
So she did exactly.
I even told her, I said, you must think that everybody just makes a lot of money in the United States.
Yeah, so she did the same thing to me, except she went way more expensive, and she ultimately got what she wanted. But it's clear to me that, like, she's had this plan since she was, like, a kid or a teenager or something, And I don't know. I don't understand. I don't believe she's a Christian, to be quite honest. I mean, I think it's a broad spectrum of people, and I've come across great testimonies of people that have come from dark places, so their sanctification process can be messy. But when I look at the way she so easily lies and just continuously lies about even stupid things, like obviously big things, but even things not worth lying about. It's just like the full spectrum. And the strange thing is, like, she has this very loving relationship with her mom, and it's like her mom doesn't care who her daughter is, or she like pretends that her daughter's a good person and like just puts up with whatever ridiculous, like, and the sons are kind of ridiculous too. Like, I like Jose. I mean, I understand that he was a drug addict and he's recovered, but the son Eric like basically stole his parents' savings and then like treats them like crap. He eventually kicked him out of that house, forced them to go live in the 2-bedroom apartment with Consuelo, which of course resulted in Danny and her sleeping together. And we were in the middle of courting. I'd basically proposed to her at that point. And all of a sudden I'm looking at 2 parents in an apartment, and her son who's about to turn 16, and I'm teaching Danny how to drive. She can't drive. It's like a whole big, crazy, ridiculous, messy nightmare. And of course she doesn't have any friends, seemingly. Or maybe she has friends, but she doesn't let you know who they are because they're all like online friends or people back from the DR. But she had one couple, Ileana and Victor McKinn, who I don't think you ended up meeting, but she met him through the Natick Church of Christ. Did you ever attend a service with Natick Church of Christ? You still there? Brian, did I lose you?
You got me there.
Sorry. What's the last thing you heard me say? I can repeat myself.
Something about she knew someone from the Natick Church of Christ.
Yeah, well, I was saying, that did you meet any of her friends? I mentioned that she met Victor and Ileana McKinn, and those are the only friends of hers I really ever met. And she met him through this church she was attending, and she was really big on. Mike Hammonds was the name of the head pastor at Natick Church of Christ. Did you ever go there with her?
It's funny you say that. I went there before I met Marielle, and then me and Marielle went one time, and then we were over after that. And I was so afraid to run into Marielle that I never went back there. And I was trying to avoid her at all costs.
Yeah.
And I went once about 2 months ago, and
really?
I was literally almost shaking through the whole entire sermon, afraid that she was going to show up.
So do you know any of the people that are in the congregation there?
I don't know them well. I've met them a couple times.
They all know me because I was online with them, and I met with, like I said, Greg Burton, Mike Hammond. Those are the 2 teaching pastors. I knew Greg Dancer, I think is his name. I knew the other elder there. I mean, I knew all of those guys, and I even talked to Mike Hammond about this. I think that church is slightly unhealthy, where bad things happen to people, and they try to keep it a secret, thinking it's like the right thing to do. But like, if they knew you and knew anything about what you'd gone through and didn't tell me about it, that makes me feel really horrible.
No, I did not tell them.
Yeah. Well, they think very highly of Marielle, just so you know. They all think...
Does she still go there?
No. So her church history is she was going... We actually got married in that building. We got married in the NCC on December 16th, 2020. So that wedding was the only wedding that happened during the pandemic there. And, Janet and Mike, the husband and wife that run that church, helped us put it together. Greg Burton performed the ceremony. Dora Burton was at the ceremony. We're well known in that church. We moved right after our marriage to a house that was purchased in Port Richey, Florida. And literally, we're married December, go on a honeymoon. Moved down there in March. We wait an extra month, actually, so Danny can get his license because of his birthday. And then, within like 3 weeks, she sets up a separate bedroom just for her to sleep, won't let me share the bed. And then Danny ends up sleeping in the bed with her, and she tells me, oh yeah, Danny had anxiety, so he slept with me, and I'm newly married to my wife, and I'm not allowed to sleep with her. It's, she had this strange thing when we were courting. She made it seem like, oh, we need to be sleeping together all the time, and I'm like, no, we don't actually, because that's creating all kinds of problems for me. I'm not wanting to cross that line with you. And so she would do, I'm not going to get into the details of this because I think it would be uncomfortable, but she was very sensual during the courtship. And she was very interested in me being attracted to her during the courtship and having my eyes on her during the courtship. And I had to go out of my way. And I would complain to the church that this is a problem. And it was kind of one of the reasons it was forcing the marriage, was like, hey, I don't want to pass that line, yet you're tempting me kind of like on a regular basis. So does that sound familiar?
That's her. Yeah. She does that.
So it was like all ridiculous manipulation. And the sick thing is, I think she's used that same manipulation on her son, because she doesn't have a conversational relationship with Danny. She ignores him like for long periods of time on a regular basis. And like this kid sees these men. I'm sure there's this rotation of men in his life at this point, and he wants the attention of his mom, and he figures that's the way to get it. And he doesn't want to be a son; he wants to be a husband. So it's this is like I've had your number for like months, and I've spent a lot of time thinking like, how am I going to talk to this guy? As a matter of fact, I thought it was a different Brian. I was trying to contact this other Brian that never returned my call because I didn't have enough information to figure it out. So there's another Brian that's got some voicemails for me and who has no idea why I would be calling him. But for several months I did that, and then I was like, it must be the wrong guy, and then I went down this other path. But wow, It's I don't know if I guess it does feel better to not feel like this crazy, but it's like you are way smarter about dealing with this person than I have, obviously. So I had gotten the impression, but she never said, that you moved there for the relationship, but that sounds like that's not true. You were moving there anyway, or how did that work? When you met her, were you in Tennessee?
I met her when I was in Tennessee, but I was looking for a job.
Okay.
And I put some applications up here, and it just worked out that way.
But then how did the apartment idea come up? Like, that's a pretty uncommon way for two people to start out a relationship.
Yeah, it was strange, and I made a very, oh my gosh. So how that worked was this was the first red flag.
Yeah.
She was living in this apartment, and it was I couldn't figure it out because she was never straightforward.
Right.
But this apartment she lived in, what it turned out to be, was an Airbnb apartment.
Oh.
Somebody was subletting this apartment out.
Ah.
And so this apartment she was renting on a weekly basis. The actual leasee was actually moving out, so she was going to have to find another place to live. So she put her name up and applied for the apartment, but she didn't have a job.
Right.
And she says, "Well, you're moving up here." She says, "Why don't? It's a 3-bedroom apartment. You can take one bedroom, and Danny's in the other apartment, and I'm in another bedroom, and I can take this bedroom, and we'll just be very platonic about it and respect boundaries on it." I said, "Well, I guess." And I did not like the idea.
Right.
I hated the idea.
Yeah.
And she gave me such a guilt trip. She would literally look at me on WhatsApp and just stare at me and not say a single word.
Yeah.
And then she would just start crying.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that timeline. So you contact on this site. How soon after you contact does she suggest that you do a video call?
she wanted to do it right away. I
Yep.
didn't.
Yep. That was me. 2
I'm
days.
very kind of slow about it, and I think it's probably a good 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and then she used to make fun of me. She's like, I thought you thought I was going to bite your head off, or you thought something was just to be so horrible about it. But
so I think
I guess it's not that bad.
I think that she knows that she has a certain way of, presenting herself on video that becomes manipulative. So I think it's very staged. I think she believes she's an actress, basically. She watches a ridiculous amount of TV, and it seems like in her mind she's some kind of actress, and she figures like if she gets somebody on video, she can basically, manipulate them, and she's been successful. And if you think about meeting somebody in prison, like like at least in the movie, you're between a partition or whatever, you're just looking at them. So I think she's like figured out how to take this thing from her youth and use it in her adulthood. But like, how soon after you were chatting on video did she convince you to do this apartment thing?
Maybe headquarters about 5 months later.
Oh.
Or about 4 or 5 months later.
Okay. All right. Wow. Do you get the sense that she was talking to do you ever get the sense that she was talking to other people, either while you were, chatting remotely, or even when you were kind of living together?
No, actually, I never got that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So. Go ahead.
No, she was attentive. She was either positively or negatively attentive to me. And towards the end, it was just all negative. It was just, she realized she was just not winning with what her goals were. And so she was just literally just beating me down left and right. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, I don't know why you're so hostile. You walk around like you have to have the cream of the crop of everything. It's like you've got a taste of caviar,
right,
on a sardine budget.
Well, so the background on that is her mom had some kind of government job, and the government job gave them housing, and the housing gave them access to things that rich people had, and living, in and around rich people. So I get the impression she was very poor, but she was exposed to what rich people had, and she just pretty much wants what she saw. And she doesn't really care how she gets it. She presents herself as being a hard worker. She presents herself as being really smart. She's neither one,
She's not smart, and she's the laziest person in the world.
Wow, thank you for saying that.
She doesn't earn anything she gets.
Trust me, I've learned the hard way. But thank you for saying that. I'm glad I didn't have to tell you that to say it. But it took me a long time to figure out. I think she gets it from her dad, probably her mom a little bit, that they know how to twist things to make it seem like it's one way, but it's like the opposite. It's like the opposite. I mean, she mentioned this, but go ahead.
I think she's a con artist. I know. She's a thief.
Yes.
I can't say enough negative things about her. So much that just the thought of seeing her just makes me just so sick to my stomach.
Trust me, I understand.
I have nothing to say about her.
So I changed calling her name. Funny you said that, to Consuelo, which is actually her legal first name, because the word con fits her so well.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. Like, she has that first name. Names mean something, and she has that first name. She likes the prettiness of Marielle, but it doesn't fit her. And if you've ever seen her, in her natural state, she's not the person when she straightens her hair and makes herself up. There's, two different people. It's like two different people.
I know.
Yeah.
It is. This is like, whoa.
Yep. So.
I remember the first time I saw her at the airport. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But then, weeks later, I'm like, who's this?
Exactly.
I totally understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's but she's very, she's got this tomboyish masculine side, and then she's got this put-on feminine side. But when it comes to arguing and discussing, the tomboy masculine thing basically comes out. I don't really,
I'm not a big fan of saying someone's schizophrenic or has multiple personalities, but like I believe this is as close as I'm ever going to get. Is this person?
Well, I was getting ready to say, I'm in the medical field, and she runs. I'm not in the psychiatric specialty, but I do believe she definitely has some kind of underlying borderline personality disorder for sure, with even possibly like a narcissistic complex with it.
Yeah.
Is what I think.
So she was very isolating. She would not let me maintain contact with friends I already had. She wouldn't let me maintain contact even with some close family members. And even I used to do some personal ministry stuff. I had like an 89-year-old lady that I used to drive around to the grocery store, and I wanted to maintain contact. And she said, well, that's a woman. You can't, that's crossing some boundary. So she would have all these interesting things to say, and she would somehow say, well, that's not Christian. So she would use the Bible and verses in this extremely manipulative way, and it was out of context. It was clear she didn't understand it, but she was so strong-willed about it. It was just you knew that it was like she wore you out. It was like, this is a molehill. Why are you making it into a mountain? I don't feel like, dying on this molehill, so you would kind of give up. So that's one thing. The other thing was, go ahead.
Memories for sure.
Say it again.
I said you're definitely bringing back some memories. I forgot.
Well, I mean, my hope for you, Brian, is you've moved on and you found healthier people to, and if you've needed a counselor, you've sought the help of one. I know that when I'm done, I've got some time in counseling ahead of me to deal with this, and there's just no getting around it, to be honest. But grocery shopping was another weird thing. She insisted on getting any and every kind of groceries. If you limited her on putting something in the grocery cart, she'd throw a mini fit, and she'd make up these things about, well, in the Dominican Republic, this is the man's role, and then this is the woman's role. And of course, most of the woman's role was going to take place after marriage, so it was kind of like this weird, carrot that you were going after. But in the meantime, I was supposed to pay for all these bills, and groceries was definitely a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And it spilled over to paying groceries for her parents, basically,
Oh my! The groceries were something so huge. She would just say, "Give me your debit card," and then each grocery store visit was literally like between $400 and $600
wow.
a visit. I'm like, what the heck are we buying in here?
Yeah,
and it's just crazy stuff.
Well, and that's the thing is, since she knew it was your card or my card, she'd buy the most expensive whatever, and you just looked at her and you knew, before me, you weren't buying any of this stuff. So, why aren't you just doing normal grocery shopping? But, for me, it was Trader Joe's was the big ticket thing. Costco became a thing, and then anytime you went anywhere, where there was a checkout line, if there was a snack bar or whatever, she'd pick it up and throw it there and kind of give you this feeling like if you made her put it back or whatever, she was going to have a fit, pretty much like a 6 or 7 year old.
Yes. You put something out the cart. Oh my gosh, that was a no-no.
Yeah, but you.
My stores, she had to have organic. Everything was whole foods, organic food stores, everything.
Yeah. So, I know that Danny had a conversational relationship with his dad, and I don't know if you know this. The one thing I did find out is neither one of these parents would raise Danny for the first 3 years. So for the first 3 years, Danny stayed with his grandparents, and he pretty much thinks of his grandparents more as parents than he does anything else. And I think he thinks of Marielle more as a wife than he does as a mom or a sister, but not a mom. And so I guess what involvement did you see or hear about from Danny's father from the past?
I didn't really get to see much. The only I would see would be Marielle would be talking to him on a cell phone, and then pass it off to Danny and talk. And that happened maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. But there wasn't much involvement of her.
But do you get the impression that his father ever like had custody of him or saw him on a regular basis?
No.
Okay.
Well, he was in they left the DR to come up here, but they had really no relationship at all. And as far as I'm aware, he has never been up here.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I got the impression because they lived so long in the DR. I guess I assumed that well, okay, this is what I figured out. Her and Danny's father had this on again, off again relationship for 10 or 15 years. That's the impression I get. Did you get any of that?
I got it was more off than it was on.
Okay, fair enough, but it was not a very steady thing. It was like this thing where they were going out, breaking up, going out, breaking up. I got the impression she flew back and forth from the U.S. to the DR with an airline job, and probably they hooked up, even if they weren't dating or going out. It was kind of like there was no structure to this relationship. It seemed, they were never really engaged. They were never planning on getting married, and that's part of the culture of both of them for the longest time, apparently. So.
Yeah, that's from I can't really recall much from that.
Hey, I hate to do this to you, and the answer, you may want to think about it, pray about it, and you can absolutely say no. I've got a court date in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, August 22nd, and it's meant to precede the divorce process. And I'm confident that if you were to show up and share your experience and some of it might be a weird form of therapy for you, to be honest. Now, I wouldn't want you to lie. I wouldn't want you to exaggerate. I don't think you have to be honest. But if you just simply told the truth about what took place there in the courtroom in front of a judge, I'm confident it goes a long way for me trying to get back as much as I can. That's right around the corner here. And it's one of the reasons I had to suck it up and decide to call you is I know that that's coming up for me. So I'm not going to make you answer that question here, but if you wanted to think about it at least, I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
When is the court date?
It's August 22nd. It's like a two part court date. I don't really understand why that's the case, but the first day is on the 22nd. I think the 24th is if we can't get done on the 22nd, and then there's a chance that we don't get done on both days. But certainly, if there was any expense to you, I'd be willing to pay for it, and within reason, I suppose. But at any rate,
I'll give some thought. I'll give some thought.
Yeah.
And I've got your number. But,
yeah.
You can feel free to text me or call me back.
Well, yeah, I'll text you, and like I said, if you happen to have anything lying around, if you wanted to make some notes, even just to try to help you jog your memory about some things and some timelines, and some of the things that were patterns that you basically already talked about. She's gone through 5 lawyers in this divorce, and she's filed in 2 different states, kind of pulling things out. I fired my first lawyer because they were just draining me. My second lawyer quit. She's basically figured out that even for a 4-month divorce, I created about a $500 marital estate, and she's wanting half of it. And she's not budging from what she wants. And she called the police.
I don't deserve any of it.
I know. I don't know if you had this type of interaction. She called the police and lied to the police twice. So the day we were moving into the condo, January 28th, I spent the entire day moving, and I was exhausted. And it seemed like she had this plan, but she gave me a little speech telling me how her and Danny shouldn't really be helping to move the way that they are, and they didn't help a whole lot. And then she slammed the door. I mean, Danny had just got his car and his driver's license, and he was helping because I drove the moving truck, he drove his car, and that's how we were going to drop off the truck. And I sat in the back of the car, and I slammed the door because I was upset, and she demanded that I get out of the car. And it's like January 28th before a snowstorm, and I refused. And so I closed the door, she opened it again, demanded I get out. And when I didn't, she called the police. And when the police came, she basically lied to the police right in front of me. And her and Danny lying to the police kind of scared me, but I was still in love with her. I was moving into a condo. I thought I was starting my life with my wife. So anyway, about a week later, she comes to the apartment in Quincy, Massachusetts, where I'm staying, and I'm kind of trying to figure stuff out. She takes the brand new car that I purchased, and it's a $75,000 car I bought, a brand new car, and I'm not planning. Danny wasn't allowed to drive it. I was the only one to drive it, and you know better than anybody. She has this vertigo and migraine. She can't drive. She shouldn't really have a driver's license. Mm-hmm. And that would be a big help to me, just even you saying that much. Because I'm sure you were driving her and Danny around for that entire year.
Everywhere.
I know. I did exactly the same thing. And that's, so anyway, when I decide I'm going to leave the state, I go get that car. She calls me on the phone, and she'd been threatening to call the police and lie the entire time. And she calls the police again and lies to them and reports it stolen. And so I'm driving out of state, and the police are calling me, telling me that I'm going to be stopped at gunpoint. Both times the police were involved, I was afraid for my life. And then even during the time in between where she was threatening, it really bothered me. And so I thought that maybe she'd called the police on you and lied to them, but it doesn't sound like that happened. So.
No. Yeah. Well, she's really escalated with you.
Did she have a friend to call the police?
No, she never had any friends that I'm aware of, other than some friends back in the DR.
No, threats. Did she ever threaten you with calling the police? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Probably bad perception, but no, actually, she never threatened me.
Okay. Did she ever lay hands on you?
No, but I do remember that finger going crazy in my face.
Did Danny ever lay hands on you?
No.
Was he ever aggressive towards you?
No, he was aggressive, but not towards me. Just aggressive towards the doors and physical property.
Right.
He would like to slam stuff
in
the house. And,
But.
Well,
as he got bigger, he wanted to test out, how, because he's over 6 foot now, and he's, going to be a big boy. But, I wrestled with my brother as a kid, and that was it. I don't need to. I don't have anything to prove. I'm a chemical engineer. I feel like my mind is good enough. So I know that she targeted you because of your profession and how much money she thought you would make, and she targeted me the same way. I think you know that much, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was all after my money. That's all she wanted.
Did you ever want her to meet your mom?
She did. She wanted to meet my mother, and she met her once, and that was enough, and never happened again.
Yeah, so she didn't really want to meet my mom. When she finally met my mom, she was the most disrespectful I've ever seen anybody to my mom in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unbelievable the way, and I didn't think it was possible, to be honest. But, yeah, I've never seen anybody be that disrespectful to somebody's parent as she was to my mom. And I own that. That's my fault for not managing that better. But gosh, I've been nervous about this call for probably almost a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Should have just called.
Well, like I said, I thought it was a different Brian, so I actually was trying to hunt that guy down, and then I was like, well, maybe I've got the wrong one. And then I've got, like I said, I met people literally that I didn't know during this marriage. That I met some people on an online Bible study with BSF, and a few of them have been helping me navigate this situation. Because I haven't even told my mom what's going on because I'm so embarrassed about how, there's people that are close to me. I went into shock for the better part of a year because of all the police, how fast everything happened, how easily, she literally unraveled my life and then continued to party with her family. She's gone on vacation. She started new relationships. There's a guy that she met at the same time she met you, Jesus Grimman. So I don't know if that name means anything to you. But she's literally, in the wake of our divorce, gone to Venezuela and spent a month with him while she's divorcing me, and talked about marriage with him. So that's why I asked if there were other things going on, because I think if she's not doing them in parallel, she's overlapping them, and she's going back to back with these relationships. She's meeting one. Yeah. Go ahead.
Now that you said that, Jesus, that does ring a bell. It seemed like she she did go out with this guy a few times, but it seemed like after I came in the picture, he was gone.
Yeah.
What I was led to believe.
So I think you're right, because I'm learning a lot about her. So I think she meets this guy, Jesus Grimmin. I think he lives in Venezuela, though, and I think he's poor. And so there's this weird thing where, like, if it's a Latin person, she'll accept that they're poor, but if it's a Western person, they've got to be rich. And so, and I don't really understand why that is the case, but it seems like that is the case. And so, like, you know, she drops it to go with you, then probably, like, as that dies down, maybe she looks him up, and I know for sure he looks him up, and then when she gets with me, she drops him again, and then she looks him up again after we're dropped, and she even is considered marrying this guy, and she hasn't even done with marriage with me. So that's why I'm like, I wonder if this person's married people around the world and is maybe married in some other part of the world while also being married to me, which actually might be a good thing for me because she wouldn't legally be able to be married to me. But I don't know how to find that out, but I feel like it's really possible.
You know, by the time your divorce is final, she'll have you set free in no time.
Say that again.
By the time your divorce is final, she'll already be with somebody else.
I know that, and I told my lawyer that.
She'll have you free from your bonds of marriage from her.
Say it again.
You'll be free from her in no time.
No,
she's too unstable.
I understand that. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm very close to calling journalists and the media to be like, because that's how unraveled my life. It's embarrassing for me, but like, I know, and you're confirming to me that this is more criminal than it is about marriage. And I said to the judge, the first court appearance, like, but for marriage, we should be talking about this person going to jail. You know, it's marriage.
Well, I can't say it's a criminal. I can't say.
Say it again.
I feel like her primary motive. I can't say anything about her being criminal acts, but I do feel like her primary motive has been money.
Right. So
everything was evolving around money.
So you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, there is a thing called fraud, but to prove fraud, you have to prove these other intents. And I think you have to prove a pattern. So that's where you would be really helpful to show that it's not just an anomaly, strange thing with me. And of course, she's looking to blame me and make me into something that's the cause of the problem. And so, you know, someone coming along who I've never met, don't know, and says, oh yeah, by the way, all these things that happened to him, not as bad, but very similar if thing happened to me. And I have a feeling there are things that happened to you that didn't happen to me. I just don't happen to know what they are. But I know it's a lot of manipulation, it's a lot of focus on money, and it's a lot of just strange lies, but they come off the tongue so fast, so quick, and so easily that you get gaslit. You start wondering, like, is that really true? And I'm not a suspicious person normally, so I don't dig around. I don't usually look at people's emails and text messages. She was always on my phone trying to look at my messages, trying to look at my texts, and I didn't have anything to hide. She looked through my bank account. She looked through everything. And she was happy with what she saw, basically, and so, like, that green lit her to do whatever. She claims, and I've had to really wrestle with the idea that she loves me, but I think that this person doesn't really know what love means. So I don't know. You know, she has spun up something, and gosh, you know, I got to be honest with you, Brian, like, I'm dialing this number, and I'm thinking this guy's not going to pick up. It's not going to be the right guy. Even if I get him, how do I convince him to talk to me about it? Like, it's such a crazy experience. And, like, you know, I've left so many voicemails for so many people, whether it's police departments, lawyers, you know, trying to run down this thing or that thing. I've spent the last year and a half just mentally consumed by the fact that my life is stuck because all this person cares about is money. She's living in a home that I paid for with cash, so her bills are really low. She got a job at Stop and Shop, and she just put her name on just this thing and that thing. Like, her and Danny both were good at, like, just take and grab, put their name on it, take possession. It was like they were stealing in front of your eyes. You know, it's sad.
So she's still working. So where's she at right now?
So she got a job at Stop and Shop, and I think that's another reason that she needed the relationship. She couldn't manage dealing with Danny, dealing with her own needs, and a job. She doesn't have the capacity to do multiple things. She has to get to bed early. She has to get a good night's sleep, and then if she wakes up, half the time she's still sick. She's sick almost every day, physically, mentally. Yeah, almost every day there is something going on. And I said it to her, and she's this person. It's healthy this, healthy that. And I'm looking at her it's not working. And I know it's a spiritual issue. I was so close to telling her, you don't have a medical issue. You have a spiritual issue. God is not going to put up with you lying and using his word this way. What you're experiencing has nothing to do with anything you're eating. You eat the cleanest stuff. You exercise all the time. You sleep like a zombie. Obviously there's some other explanation for why you have all these. But every day there was some physical, medical, whatever thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's all psychological. I think it's all her trying to be lazy. The intentions, I think, is she wants to be lazy, not want to do anything, and she wakes up that way as a way of manipulating her surroundings, you as her partner, to get out of doing what she has to do that way. I feel like her ultimate goal was to not be able to work. She wanted the money to freely come into her pocket,
right?
While she just did whatever she wanted to do around the house, or go where she wanted to go. She wanted the luxuries, but she didn't want to do anything to earn it.
Yeah.
So I had the impression, because I told her that maybe she'd go to work too, and maybe you can afford this place, and now I can go somewhere else. And every day I can't work now. I don't know if I can go to work. I don't know if I can do this. Today I don't feel good. Mary, you're just trying to find a way of not going to work because you want to keep taking my money.
Yeah. Well, she got a job that was pretty easy for her because it was remote mostly, and she loved the remote aspect, and she kept getting promoted. But this company that was promoting her didn't realize, she's got an MBA, but she got the MBA, but she doesn't have. I asked her a basic economics question. I'm an engineer. I took one economics class, and I understand how supply and demand works. I asked her that basic question. She had no idea. So it's I don't actually know how she passed her classes, but she doesn't have the brain power to have a normal MBA. She doesn't.
She doesn't.
Yeah, so it's she's Google smart. Anytime she needs to find something, she just Googles it and repeats like one of the top hits, off the internet, and she acts like that's the actual answer no matter what. So she doesn't actually think for herself. She YouTube videos it, she Googles it, she Instagrams it, whatever. But it's if it's not on the internet, she doesn't know it. And Netflix is her best friend, so whatever. You can't separate it. Yeah. So, well, you've confirmed a lot of things for me here, and gosh, I would have bet lots of money that I was going to get a hold of you, and if I did, you weren't going to talk to me. But I appreciate being wrong.
It actually kind of gives me some relief that I hate that this has happened to you. I hate that she's done this to you.
Well, you and I, Brian,
you know what she was.
The
odd thing about him.
Go ahead.
You know the odd thing about Hingham was, right before I left, I was walking to my car in the garage, and I was looking into the driver's seat, standing up with my back against part of the parking garage, and I turned around, and I saw this figure right by me, 3 feet behind my back. And I'm like, who is that? And she stepped up on a little walkway right before you get ready to go to the elevator.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that looked just like Marielle.
Yeah.
But she would never turn around. But she had the posture, that egotistical walk that she has.
Yes.
And you know that walk I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking
very
about.
Very proud.
Yes.
She's got that proud little walk. And I'm like, that's got to be her. That's so strange because normally when she walks like that by me, she'll glare over her shoulder at me, kind of snobbish.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, well, why would she be in this building after I left her 8 months ago?
So that's so strange. Do you think that she moved into that building to follow you there? She is a stalker.
I have no idea.
I'm telling you, she has stalker. Like if she gets fixated on something, I'm telling you. I'll just tell you this for a fact, Brian. She has looked you up in the time that I've known her. I know it for a fact. And she has thought about whether or not to reach out to you when our relationship hasn't been going well. I know it for a fact. So I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm just telling you, in her mind, you are a possibility of somebody that you could like fix the relationship with. I'm just letting you know. The way that I've seen. Did she ever write you a letter at the end of the after the end of the relationship?
She did.
Okay. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it. So she didn't show it to me, but I've seen it from other means. I'll just leave that for now. But yeah, I don't know what you thought of that letter, but it sounded like a sweet letter when I read it. But
yeah, I thought it was nothing but manipulation.
Say it again.
Yeah, it was nothing but manipulation.
Yeah, I understand that now, and I know that to be true. The strange thing is, I think she's very manipulative with her verbal language, but she's very incompetent with her written language. So I know that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for her to have to write something, and she's having to write it and rewrite it. I don't think it's a heartfelt rewrite. She's trying to figure out how to use the same manipulation she uses with her language, but in writing, and she's just not as good at it. So like I have very little in the way of length. I write at length. I can write a lot. If I were to edit my own stuff, it would come out a lot better. But I can get emotional and passionate, and so I will express in words. And of course, she did that silent thing and that short answer thing or no answer thing. And of course, that would frustrate me, and I'd want to get my message across. So I would start texting away at length, and I'd get like these short little responses. If it was up to her, we would just be sending like little images and pictures back together. We wouldn't actually be saying words, But whatever. She has studied the art of dating and conversing for the purpose of getting somebody interested and attracted, but she has no idea how to maintain a relationship. And she won't read a book. She won't go to counseling. All of these things were offered to her over and over again, and she looked like a deer in headlights if you talked about going to counseling. It was like the scariest problem. And she'd lie that she'd been to counseling in the past, and I've gone to counseling, and nothing in her language and her vocabulary told me she'd been even in counseling for like 30 minutes, and she wouldn't go to premarital counseling. She wouldn't go to counseling after the marriage. She wouldn't go to deal with some of her own personal things. I still love this woman. I still love her son. I still love her parents, but it's an unhealthy relationship. And I've had to set aside all my feelings, all my concerns, however big I think the cross is, however much grace I think there is in the world, and know that I gave this everything I had, like literally and some, and I've had to have a lot of healthy conversations. Quite honestly, this is one of them, to get some perspective on what's really taking place here. So like, it's sad that it takes this much for me to, accept that my broken heart has to basically stay broken. But that's where it ends. I think that she dates people based on their location, based on their finances, and so like she'll accept somebody who's poor if they're in an interesting place that she wants to go visit, because now she's got a tour guide and a buddy, because she can meet people online, but she's horrible at meeting people in person. Yeah. Her ability. Go ahead.
I would run if I had to do it. If I were you, I'd run from this woman.
Well, I basically did. I literally left the state. I had a home that I purchased, and I abandoned my own home for my own safety's sake, which is, like, she doesn't have any right to the home. She contributed very little to the purchase of that home. I'm curious, you don't have to tell me exactly where, but are you in the Massachusetts or Rhode Island area?
I am. I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Is she in Massachusetts?
No, so we moved. I bought a condo in Smithfield, Rhode Island. We were living in Quincy. Stop and Shop's headquarters were right in Quincy, so that's a lot of the reason she would have picked that apartment. And the crazy thing is, this is the funny thing, she didn't have to work. She wasn't going to be able to have a lifestyle that she wanted in terms of all the purchases, but I bought a home for cash, and I had no debt. And if we managed our finances, we would have had a good life together. It just didn't appeal to her because she wants all the bells and whistles. As soon as we bought the home, she starts looking at buying real estate in the Dominican Republic. And she's always asking about a vacation for her and Danny. And she would do this weird thing. Like if I was on the outs with her, she would all of a sudden be getting along with Danny better. She'd treat Danny like a boyfriend that I was supposed to be jealous of. And it's like, well, that's kind of crazy, And so
She would do that.
yeah, I mean, she has this very strange relationship with her mom because, like, it's like her mom. She hides all these things from her mom and like her close family, so they think she's like this sweet person that occasionally has a temper. When it's like, no, she's never really the sweet person, and she mostly has a temper. So so I don't know, like, but for 2 to 3 hours here and there with her parents, she acts like she's like a little angel doing things and wanting to be helpful, whatever. But like, she's passive aggressive with her parents too. So, I don't. The sick thing about it is I've had so many healthier relationships, and I should know so much better. But there was something about her that just kind of clicked me really hard, and it's taken a lot out of me to realize where I was really at. And I can't thank you enough for this conversation because you've absolutely put it in perspective. So. Yeah, like I said, if there's a way, I suspect we talk again. I suspect this, my hope for you is that while it may be immediately emotionally uncomfortable, in the long run, it's emotionally healing for you to know that you're not the only one, and sadly somebody else went through basically worse. Not that it's a contest, not that it's a contest.
I thought I was. For a while, I thought I did something.
No.
What did I do to all of a sudden spring about her behavior for her to respond to me this way? Why is she treating me this way for when I've been nothing but great to her?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I was starting to wonder, like, am I not the person I thought I was, and I just don't see myself in the mirror?
Well, it's the strangest thing because I think she really does go for the person that's nice, and everybody knows how I am and who I am. I had gotten to a place where I wanted to serve God, and I had a desire for a family of my own, and she loved me helping her and her family. When I try to help strangers, she would get mad at me. I mean, I can give you example after example when even my own family, but if I try to help strangers, which is a relatively normal thing for me, she would get mad at me about it. And, there's many examples of that. I helped a lady that lived in that residence. There was a bus going to the hospital. The bus missed her, so she was stuck. She was crying in the parking lot, and I saw her. I didn't have anything better to do, so I offered her a ride. And I even texted Consuelo or, phoned her to let her know what I was doing and who I was with, and she didn't answer. And so after the fact, I told her what happened. And she's like, you let another woman in your car? And I'm like, it had nothing to do with her being a woman. She needed to go to a hospital appointment, and it was the right thing to do. So she quarantined me for 2 weeks, and she used the pandemic basically as an excuse. She manipulated the hell out of me because of this pandemic. Everything that's going on in the world that impacted us, she would manipulate it and use it as a way to get her way. And it quite honestly, sadly, worked. But, God says, tell the truth in love. And I could manipulate that verse easily and long. And I still have a love for this person, but I also know that it's unhealthy for her to think that she's getting away with all the stuff she thinks she's getting away with. And somewhere along the line, it doesn't have to be from me, but God is going to get her attention and say, look, you've hurt a lot of people. And you've hidden it from so many people that those stories are going to catch up with you. And, unfortunately, her pattern is once she figures out how to do a small thing, she goes a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger. And her and Danny are on track to do something bigger and worse to whoever the next person is. And Danny's going to treat women horribly based on how he's experienced his mom. And, his mom is going to keep doing the same thing and worse and worse and worse. And, God God is not this, looking down and trying to do an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That part is gone, but there is still justice on this world, and He says, He will take care of that. He's all seeing, He's all knowing, He's everywhere, and for people to go around and think they can do things behind His back is kind of silly. I've done my sins and I've confessed my sins to at least one person on this planet because it's the right thing to do, and it humbles me and it puts me in a place where I don't want to do it again. This person doesn't acknowledge the sin in their life, and that's why I really question whether or not they have a repentant relationship with God. Because the only thing she's ever apologized to me for is her tongue and the words that come out of it. But there is so much more that I'm owed and I'm never going to get, but I don't even know if she understands that, So
I don't think she.
Yeah.
How did she say? How did she tell you that she found the Church of Christ?
It's a strange thing. She talks about visiting all these different churches, and she got really taken in. The theology of a Church of Christ I don't agree with, just so you know, and I was warned early on when attending that there were going to be some differences between my theology and theirs, and I was naive. I thought I could actually change the elders of a church to see things biblically a different way. So I don't want to offend you if you are a staunch church.
Oh, no.
Okay. But they have some issues around baptism that I don't agree with. I don't believe baptism seals salvation. I think faith seals salvation, and baptism is an outward representation of what happened to you inside, and I pretty much stand on that rock. So Church of Christ has a very specific interpretation of Acts 3:28 and Mark 16:16, and they kind of go down their own path, in my opinion. But to your question, I think she was church shopping, and according to her, and my suspicion is, based on other things I've watched her do, is she looks at the cars in the parking lot, and she sees how nice the cars in the parking lot are, and then she gets interested in the congregation. And so she makes some assessment of the wealth of the congregation, and then and notice, she prefers to speak in Spanish, but she doesn't seek a Spanish church. She seeks an English-speaking church because she perceives that to be the wealthier church. And probably for that part of the country, that's a pretty good assessment. So as much as she understands things and navigates life and probably internalizes things in Spanish, she's using church to learn English. Like, her interest in church has as much to do with the language as it does anything else. And she's often quiet in small groups and discussions, and she knows that creates the appearance that she's thinking and thoughtful, and she'll offer up a word, 2 or 3 here and there, but really she probably doesn't understand a lot of what's going on, and she probably doesn't have a lot to say that's meaningful to add to the conversation. I don't mean that as a cut, I just mean it as she hasn't taken her time to actually learn her Bible to be able to contribute, in an English language, first language discussion group. And don't get me wrong, I don't think she's unintelligent. I just don't think she's as intelligent as she tries to present herself. And
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, the intellect that she has, she uses it for manipulation, and she uses it for other means. Like, if she just applied herself to the normal means of understanding things, she'd do fine. But she's lazy. She's intellectually lazy. Like, she had me write the Women's Ministry Mission Statement for NCC, and she took credit for it. And so, I've thought long and hard about women's ministries, so I wrote this very verse-heavy mission statement, and like I said, she presented it as her own work. And it was one of the first things she had me do, and I thought, oh, she's busy between her new job, and she's taking on a leadership role in the women's ministry, and Danny's a handful for her, and I thought I was going to be drafting and working with her, but I basically wrote it myself. So, I made some mistakes in terms of not seeing red flags and responding to red flags and being so willing to. She described herself as my wife in a first exchange. She introduced herself to me online. I'd seen her profile a bunch. I'm 5'10". She's 6 foot. I'm at a point when I met her, but I didn't date women taller than me. because it just usually didn't work out, and they had plenty of opportunities to date guys that tall or whatever. So I asked her right away, like, are you comfortable with me being 2 inches shorter than me? And she made it seem like no big deal. And like I said, she was very aggressive online in terms of introducing herself, wanting to email, describing herself as wife, wanting to video chat in 2 days. And anytime I'd say something in terms of meeting, and I prefer to meet people in person, she was all about it. But once I got there, and once I followed through on what I said, she got kind of like, not cold feet, but she didn't realize, like, I'm a person of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I think she's had a lot of people online, say things and do things that they don't actually do, and she just plays along, and it's more of a game to her than it is real. And she's just waiting for somebody to, like, actually do something for her. Usually it has to be financial in nature, and then she's sold. Once money starts passing out of your wallet, that's what hooks her, So, yeah. So, crazy, ridiculous. Well.
So is she in Rhode Island right now?
She's in Smithfield, Rhode Island, in a condo that I purchased. And she is been there since January of last year, and she wants the condo out of a divorce. Basically, she wants to be able to stay in that condo. A lot of this relationship has been about housing.
Ever since I've known her, she has had a problem with having a living arrangement the whole entire time I've known her.
Yeah.
I'm only asking where she's at because I'm always very careful when I go to the Metro West area of Massachusetts.
Well,
around Natick and Medfield.
Yeah,
okay. I'm afraid like crazy that I'm going to run into her.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is what I'd advise you. Like, I know you'd already do this, but basically walk the other way, and I don't know if you remember where her parents used to live in terms of when they lived with her brother, but, wherever that is, which I don't remember off the top of my head, the brother is still there. The parents are in,
Adultsboro?
Say it again?
Adultsboro?
If it's helpful, I can look it up for you, but hold on a second, I'll look it up.
No, I don't ever go out that far.
Well, it's right here in my phone, so I can just tell you, so I'm not, like, making it up, basically. The parents moved to their own place. So here we go. The brother's place is in Whittinsville. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes,
so the brother's place is Whittinsville. So if you happen to be there, there's a chance you would sort of run into her. It's kind of an off the beaten path place in my mind. And then the parents are now in Millville, and then she's in Smithfield, and she doesn't drive now. So she has to get in Lyfts or Ubers to get anywhere. I don't know why, but I suspect she doesn't date people locally. I have a theory about that. I think that I'd love to find somebody that she dated in the DR besides, Danny's father. But I think that she did awkward things with men in the DR, and she's such a recognizable person that my guess is, like, the word got around, like, this person does this thing or that thing, and I'm not going to speculate on what those things are, but, like, my guess is she was up to no good in the DR, and she, like, ran through and got a reputation for herself, like, on this little island or in her city. And so I think that when she moved to the U.S., she's like, well, I'm not going to date people that are local because then word is going to get out. I'm this recognizable person. So it seems like she prefers to date people that are, like, out of state, out of the country, and then when the relationship goes south, most of the time they're going to move back or move away because they're not really connected to that part of the country. At least that was the case for me. And of course, she dated this guy in Venezuela, And the other thing too, like, she's dating guys in all over the country actually. And for me, it was like, oh, we got to have this relationship here. My parents are here, and we got to be, like, within 30 minutes of them, and da 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 da. And of course, I don't have any connections there, and I feel isolated. And then she started ignoring me. She would do this thing where, like, the only reason I'm in this part of the country is you, and now you're basically ignoring me, and you won't let me make friends. And by the way, it's easy for me to make friends, but she wouldn't let me make friends. And so it's like this really controlling, manipulative thing where like, you have to pay attention to me except when I don't feel like it, which happens to be a lot. you know.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And she's not like for me to talk to anybody.
Yes.
She's trying to exclude me personally. And, that's also very narcissistic behavior. Yeah. And, no, I told her, so don't you ever contact me ever again. Seemed like, don't quote me on this, but I even told her once that you don't quit seeking me, I'm going to get a restraining order against you for stalking me.
Yeah. So that's funny you say that.
She would just show up.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to end up getting a restraining order against her when all of this is said and done. I asked the judge, I told her I'm afraid to go to the state because she's willing to lie to the police, and I don't trust, anything that she does. And so the judge said there's a no contact order for the rest of this. But there's some other things that happen with the police that I'm not comfortable with in terms of how they've dealt with it. So I know that I'm going to take that aspect of things up once this divorce starts moving along the way it should, or afterwards. But there's going to be a civil aspect in terms of what's being done here, because it's basically being a clown show as far as I'm concerned. And the police have not been interested in engaging except when it was to my demise. And that doesn't work for me, So, I'm getting a lot of peace of mind. If you think of anybody that you heard of name-wise, actually, you said you did hear of that name, Jesus Grimmin. Do you remember what you heard or what the context was?
No, I don't recall the last name. I just remember Jesus.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing his name pop up on WhatsApp. And I kept asking, who is this? Who is this person? And it seemed like in the beginning she wouldn't give me a direct answer.
Right.
She was very evasive.
Yes.
In the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that.
But the best bet is to get away from this woman. She is absolutely... She's a monster.
Yeah, well, there is a trail of guys. Like I think she's a serial relationship person, and I think she overlaps her relationships as well. And she puts people on the back burner and brings them to the front burner. And I don't know, how, I'm not exactly sure how she's gotten to this age and it hasn't caught up with her more than it has. But I think it's about to start to catch up with her, because I believe in telling the truth, and I believe that we live in a world where we're short on the truth, and I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But she's threatened me with defamation suits if I say anything about this thing or that thing. There's some awkward connections between, according to her, I'll say her youngest brother Eric beats up his youngest son Eric, who's actually a very sweet kid, and I had this really strong, quick connection with her nephew Eric, and she would describe that her mom would let her know that he's getting beaten up by his dad, and I was going to confront his dad about it, and she basically said no, because he has such a bad temper that I should be afraid. And I'm afraid of Consuelo because of the fact that she'll lie to the police, but in the normal sense, I'm not really afraid of anybody. I wasn't raised to be afraid in that sense. I can be psychologically and emotionally afraid, but you're not going to intimidate me because you're a guy and you want to be violent. That's to me, that's ridiculous. So I was going to confront him, but she wouldn't let me, and it's always bothered me if to the extent that that's true. She said that her youngest brother cheats on his wife on a regular basis. And his wife cries about it, and the mom would be there living in the house and know about it. And it was this weird thing where the parents are so proud of their kids, but they keep their kids' secrets, or they don't parent them or coach them to treat their spouses better or just to treat people better. And they act like they're this really nice, sweet family, but they're basically passive aggressive all the way, all the way. And there's nothing wrong with being poor. But there is something wrong with being poor and envying what everybody else has. you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, but being poor in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, and America's the best place to be poor because you can work your way out from being poor, which is why people are fighting to get into this country. You know, so, you know, but the parents are basically like the daughter, and I don't know how Danny's going to turn out. He thinks he's going to be an entrepreneurial business person, but like he doesn't have the people skills to warrant anybody wanting to work with him. So I don't, you know, and I try to do small little business things for him and with him, but he was basically stealing money from me in these little business adventures. And he thinks he's a savvy business guy, but he basically has learned from his mom what he thinks it takes to make money. He's no interest in education, and he thinks he's going to be this business guy. And it's like, well, you know, I think that the type of people that you're going to go into business with, you're going to find out aren't going to appreciate the way that you treat them. And there are other people that aren't in love with your mom that are going to just tell you the way it is. You know, so, you know.
Well, I always thought that he would end up either in doing drugs or in jail.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't know about the drugs part for sure. I think the alcohol possibly, but the jail part, I have a feeling that's in his future. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be good for him. Like, you know, him going to jail and understanding the consequences at an early age could potentially convince him that this is not a lifestyle to pursue. But that's going to be between him and God. You know.
And it'll give him some structure that he needs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get.
No structure.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree. Like, Consuelo would put more limitations on me than she would put on her son. You know, she was more interested in managing my schedule and my time and what I was doing than she was. She would get mad at Danny. She would get angry at Danny, but she wouldn't be faultful and discipline Danny and correct him. And if she gave him a punishment, he'd talk his way out of it. I was like, well, this is a waste of time. Like, why would you ground him or say to him anything? And he's like laughing at you or taking you serious in the moment, but like 12 hours later, he just talks you out of it and he knows he can do it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, you know? So, gosh.
Does he ever kind of talk? Does he always tell you what you can and can't eat?
Consuelo? Yeah. Yeah.
She used to tell me what I can and can't eat all the time. I'm like, I'm a grown man. I know what I want to eat. If I want to sit down and eat a whole bag of chips for a supper meal, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, she'd do that. She did. Like, my favorite. My parents are from Guyana. I was born in England, and my ancestors are from India, and we grew up eating a West Indian, you know, curry. And I like dark meat, and of course Consuelo only likes, you know, white meat, whatever. But I never got to eat the food I grew up in, and I would cook it myself. I didn't even need her to cook it. She wouldn't even let me cook it, and she made up excuses like, "Oh, we don't, you know, those smells are offensive. Those spices are offensive." Well, I met her uncle.
Yep.
I met her uncle down in, you know, Florida, and like his kids go and eat Indian food. So I was like, "Well, how come you guys eat Indian food?" And she said like Dominicans don't like Indian food, and they don't like the smell. So like she'd make up weird lies, and then we went to an Indian restaurant once. And she didn't order any food, and so I'm there ordering food by myself, looking at her, thinking, "Well, you're going to eat the same way I eat all the stuff you want me to eat." And so finally, I said, "I'll get it to go." And I went to put it in the car, and she was like, "Well, you can't put that in the car." So like I paid for a full meal and had to throw it away, basically. And, you know, I mean that's kind of crazy, right? I mean, you go to a restaurant, you're hungry. You've eaten at all these other restaurants that she wants to eat at, and you finally get to, and you know, to pick a restaurant you like, and you end up having to throw the food away. And then the other thing was she had this crazy thing about, her whole family had this crazy thing about ice cream. And so like ice cream was like the end all be all, and you know, sharing ice cream sometimes, not sharing ice cream. This flavor was hot, this flavor wasn't hot. But I spent a lot of money on ice cream in this relationship. Ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah we did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
It's good to hear you laugh, Brian. It's good to hear you laugh. You know, making you miserable is not a goal of mine. Hey, what?
No.
Go ahead.
No, it feels kind of, actually, it is kind of therapeutic just to have some relief knowing that it wasn't just something, there wasn't something wrong with me that it was actually her.
You didn't imagine it. It was a nightmare, but it was real, and there is life after the real nightmare, so whatever. And I'm going to get through this. It's just that she has manipulated every aspect of the criminal system and the civil system for her benefit. And when I've gone back to the police and explained that she's lying, they don't believe me. When I go into the court and say that she's lying and done this, they don't believe me. You know, I look a little bit different than you, Brian, and I don't want to make you feel bad, but the world treats me differently. When police officers show up and see me, or when they see my name, they don't. I instantly don't have credibility, you know. And they see her; she's not white, but she's light enough skin that her and Daniel try to pass themselves off as white based on appearance, and they enjoy walking through life that way. And they kind of know, but I don't, and they use that against me as well, and it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me that, like, I literally spent about $280,000 on a condo cash. I bought it close to her parents and where she wanted, and literally I've never spent a day in this home that I bought. So I've been homeless for a year and a half. I've been staying with friends in Indianapolis and in Michigan. I have unbelievably good friends. They've not charged me a penny while I've stayed there, but I owe them, and I shouldn't have to owe them, but I do owe them. And I've owned a home the entire time, you know. So it's, you know, I'm going to write up, you know, it's been hard for me to put pen to paper on, you know, with this experience because it brings it to life, but I'm eventually going to get my act together and write up what took place here and present it to the right audience. I've tried to the police departments, quite honestly, they don't care. I've tried in court to say what's happened. Judge doesn't care. All the judge cares about is division of assets. Well, that is part of it, but my life has been unraveled, you know, and I've had to, you know, I was in a very good place when I met her, and I'm basically the opposite of that now. I have some good relationships that have sprung out of this, and in terms of the refortifying of friendships, you know, and new friendships, but I never imagined that it was going to take something like this for me to build those type of relationships. And I have a broken relationship now. It's hurt my relationship with my mom because I'm embarrassed. I don't want to tell her what's going on because it'll hurt her feelings. By the way, my dad passed. My dad, you know, I meet her May of 2020. My dad passes in October of 2020. I don't get a sympathy card. I barely get a hug. They barely care about my dad passing. So think about this. October 2020, my dad passes, and the only thing these people can continue to think about is my money. That's all they've cared about in the entire time. I haven't done mourning my dad, and I've said to myself, I remind myself, this is another reminder. When this is done, I'm going to go memorialize my dad properly the way he deserves to be. So I'm glad to hear I've helped you, but I'm sure you've helped me more than I've helped you. So I appreciate that. I'm very grateful for you. I know that you were cautious and reluctant and surprised, and that makes you normal. But I'm glad that, you know, once I started speaking, my worst case scenario was going to be like, I tell you what happens, and you had like this idyllic relationship and you parted on good terms, because that's kind of what Consuelo said. Consuelo made it seem like you got along a whole lot better than what you're describing, you know, so.
No, my mother will even tell you, when I ended it with Marielle, I told my mother, said, this day forward, don't ever ask me about this woman ever again. I don't ever even want you here. I don't ever want you to speak her name. Wow. It's that bad.
I believe
Just let me deal with it.
Yeah. Well, this is how bad it is for me. I don't even say that name. I call her Consuelo. I know that is a better fitting name for her, and I think that probably for the rest of my life. And I had to train my friends, because of course I introduced my friends that never met her by that name. I said, do you mind, I'm going to refer to her by this other name. Can you also switch so I'm not reminded of, you know, this person that doesn't really exist? So that's a strange thing that I can relate to, and it makes complete sense, Brian. So I completely get it. You know, I've basically said I'm done with meeting anybody under any circumstances through the internet. You know, like there's no need for it for me at this point. But yeah, it's a strange thing. Well, I'll send you a text message and let you have my my contact information. I scrubbed my LinkedIn profile, just so you know. So I am a chemical engineer. I did work at Eli Lilly and Company. Eli Lilly and I parted ways on interesting terms, and I'm going to start my life when this is over and go into some other arena of work that I'm passionate about. Hopefully it has something to do with God and some other things that I'm passionate about, but I got to probably get this behind me first. But my LinkedIn profile is not a very good representation of who I am. I could probably send you my old LinkedIn profile if that matters to you. And
I never caught your name.
yeah, I'm going to text it to you. But my first name's Leroy. My last name's Ragunath, so that's Raghunath. I'm 49, born January 13th. I was born in England, spent the first 12 years there. Moved to Florida, went to high school and college, graduated U of F with chemical engineering. Got my first job in Indianapolis. I mostly worked for Eli Lilly and Company. Spent 5 years as a small contractor. I did a little bit of investing in real estate, just enough to manage my expenses. And when on my eHarmony profile, I made the mistake of saying semi-retired, and I didn't really think about that as a financial thing. I thought of it as a time thing in terms of my time being available. And I think I hooked the wrong person. I know I hooked the wrong person. But, I'm a pretty straightforward person. You can probably get a little bit of that out of this conversation. Pretty much ask me anything, Brian. If I think you are asking for the right reasons, I'll tell you.
Well, I'll definitely give it. Just send me your information, and I'll definitely give it some thought.
Sure.
I'm going through some crap myself.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. I ended up getting married as well. But it kind of turned into the same kind of ordeal that you just got into.
All right. Well.
And so I met her online and doing the same thing and going through a divorce. And after she's trying to take me for everything as well.
Sorry to hear that.
So.
Yeah. Well.
And she is a nurse.
What's that?
But anyway, I'll give some thought. And but I'll try to see what I can do to give you some help. So like you really need help with her.
I do. I'm probably in the hole close to $800,000 at this point, and I can probably at best get back. I mean, if I got back everything, it's close to $500,000. At best, I'm looking at getting about maybe 3 or 4 at the very, very most. I've taken, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and restart my life. I've literally sold my home, almost all of my furniture, most of my clothes. I mean, she threw away, got rid of everything left and right, and took what she liked and gave it to her family and is using it or whatever. But
she cleaned up my. One day she was visiting me. That just reminded me.
Yeah.
She was visiting me before I moved to Massachusetts.
Right.
And I went to work, and I came home, and half my closet wardrobe was gone.
Right. She did the same thing to me over and over and over again. So I'm glad you said that. So a lot of people don't, I can tell this judge and this lawyers think I'm exaggerating the extent to which she threw things away and destroyed things. But, I didn't have to prompt you to have you come out. So I know that there's a lot of stories and anecdotes inside of you that you've set aside, but I know that they're there. And I know it's not an accident that we're talking. That I know too. So
there are some things that just have to be triggered for me to have the memory.
I know. But, we have a good God, and it's by God's grace that I'm even having this conversation with you, because 5 weeks ago, I'd given up. I was so frustrated with everything that had not worked, and so many people were encouraging me just to do something. And I had to fire a lawyer. A lawyer quit on me. She's gone through 5 lawyers. The judge treats me really horribly when I show up online virtually, and she dresses super nice and she looks super professional, and I look scruffy because I don't pay that much attention to those type of things. And so I know that the visual appearance of her versus me gives her way more credibility than I have, and I have to accept that that's part of the way the world is. But I know that someone like you showing up, who I've never met before, and just shares your story, and it confirms the things that I'm saying, will be very powerful. I'm sure of it. So I'm gonna wish you well. Sorry that you're going through some struggles yourself. I'm gonna text you my name and my email address, and I guess I can, if you want to know more about me, I can go. I copied my LinkedIn profile before I deleted it. I can send that to you. You can look me up on Facebook. I'm not a big Facebooker. Yeah, I don't know what else I can give you there. But yeah, and by the way, regardless of how this turns out,